Good afternoon. Welcome to the FTD University webinar titled 7 Trends in Social Media and How to Take Advantage of Them. Today, you will learn the biggest social media trends impacting your business and how you can take advantage of them. Krista Neher, CEO of Bootcamp Digital, will be leading this informative webinar. She's an international speaker and the author of several books, including the best-selling Social Media Field Guide and Visual Social Marketing for Dummies. Krista has over 10 years of branding and marketing experience working with companies like Procter & Gamble, GE, Macy's, and Google, and she's been a featured expert in the New York Times, CNN, NBC, CBS, and the Associated Press. Krista is passionate about social media and created one of the first accredited social media certification programs in the world. She has trained thousands of businesses and hundreds of thousands of individuals in social media marketing. Once Krista is finished with her presentation, we will open the webinar up for questions. If you have a question, simply type it in the question box on the upper right side of your screen. Please feel free to submit your questions during the presentation, and we'll hold them until the end. So without further ado, I would like to turn the call over to Krista to begin the webinar. Krista?
Excellent. Hello, and thank you for having me here today. So I am very excited about this topic today because I've been doing social media marketing now for about 10 years. And what's been really interesting was I used to have to convince people social media is important, you should spend your time there. Now, I think most of us get it. Where most of us struggle a little bit is how do we use social media in a smart way that gets real value for our business? And how do we continue to evolve our strategies so that we're taking advantage of new offerings and also so that we're not getting behind? Because what I see a lot of is businesses set up a Facebook page and they've posted stuff, and maybe when they first set up, they really thought strategically about it, but now it's just on autopilot and no one looks at it. So my hope is that as we talk about some of the trends in social media, you'll be able to step back a little bit and evaluate what you're doing and really think about where you should be spending your time and how you can get the best results. And so I'm going to share with you some tips and ideas around how you can do those things. So one of the biggest trends that we see in social media, and one of the things that I think is especially overwhelming for small business owners, is where should I spend my time? There's so many social networks and I don't even know where I should be playing. In addition, there's already a ton to begin with, but on top of that, there's more and more social networks that are popping up all the time. And a lot of businesses struggle about where they should be and where they should be spending their time. Now, the first thing that I will tell you is that you're better off doing a few things well than many things poorly. And I think one of the mistakes we see a lot is that somebody gets real excited and they say, okay, we're going to do Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, and you're not really dedicating enough time to any of them to truly be successful there. So when it comes to where should you spend your time, I think it's important to step back and try to be disciplined. What you want to do is go to where your customers are. So the first question to ask yourself is, where are my customers and where are they spending their time? So depending on some of the different markets that you go after, you may find that different customers of yours are on different platforms. So for example, if you look at your audience, you may say, well, for B2B, that audience is really heavy on LinkedIn. But for the wedding market, where I'm looking at women between maybe 25 and 35, I'm just guessing, I don't know that that's accurate, they're really active on Instagram and maybe Facebook. So you want to think about where your audience is and let that guide your decision. But here's what I find really interesting. So this is a study that showed where marketers are spending their time on social media. So it should be no surprise, Facebook is number one. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about where you should spend your time and give you some recommendations. But Facebook is number one. Instagram, though, is Twitter is slightly less. And then we see YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Google+, Instagram, and Snapchat. Now, this is a little bit outdated. They actually just last week released their newest study, so I wasn't able to incorporate it yet. But you'd find a similar trend if you looked right now. And here's what's really crazy is that if you look at this, Over 50% of businesses are using most of these tools. So over 50% of businesses are on about 6 tools, whether they're targeting other businesses or consumers. 6 tools. My question would be, are you really resourced to do 6 things well? Or do you need to think about where you should be spending your time? Let's look at where consumers spend their time. And these are global statistics, so this isn't just for the US, but the first thing you need to know is when you're thinking about where should you be investing your time and effort in social media, Facebook, 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 Facebook. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit later about some of the challenges with Facebook, paid versus organic, and how you can use ads. But Facebook is so much bigger than every other social network. If you really want to make an impact, it really is where you need to be spending your time. Here's the thing. When we look at top social networks, we see Facebook is by far the biggest. Second is Facebook Messenger. Third is WhatsApp, which is a messaging app also owned by Facebook. And then if we go down the list a little bit, we see Instagram. So what you'll notice when you look at where people are spending their time, you really don't need to get too caught up in all the social networks and feeling overwhelmed about everything that you can do. The reality is that the bulk of your audience is probably concentrated in a few places. The first is Facebook. So Facebook is by far the biggest social network. And if you've heard the myth that young people are not on Facebook, it's actually not true. More millennials have accounts on Facebook than on any other social network. Yes, you heard that right. More millennials have Facebook accounts than accounts on any other social networks. And it's not their favorite network. They don't use it the most, but they're there. So Facebook is where you're going to get the broad reach and reach most of your audience. So Facebook should always be toward the top of your list. Now, when it comes to Facebook, you're going to want to have a paid strategy, which I'm going to talk, that's another trend that we'll talk about in a little bit. The second network that most businesses spend their time on is Instagram. And when it comes to Instagram, what we see here is we have a highly engaged audience. Instagrammers tend to be much more engaged. They look at content more regularly and they interact with content more regularly. Now, again, it depends on your niche and your audience sizes, whether or not Instagram really makes sense for you, but Instagram tends to be a good opportunity because it's big and growing. If we look next on the list, you'll see Twitter. Now, Twitter's a really interesting network because of the big social networks, it's one that has declined in popularity pretty significantly over the last few years. Over the last year or two, I was surprised to see Twitter was making a bit of a resurgence in the media. As you're probably all aware, a specific politician started using Twitter quite regularly, and suddenly everyone's talking about Twitter again. And I thought to myself, man, I wonder if this is going to really spur Twitter's growth and get people excited about Twitter again. But it really hasn't had that impact from a business standpoint. And so most businesses are prioritizing Twitter lower and lower on their list. So again, it's not to say it's not important or you shouldn't be there. What I'm talking about is just giving you some general ideas of how you may consider prioritizing. Obviously, your audience is unique, so you may make different choices for yourself, but we're seeing Twitter is declining a little bit in popularity. Pinterest is still big and growing, and Pinterest is great for connecting, especially with brides or interior designers, highly visual topics. And then we see LinkedIn, which is great for the B2B audience. So as you think about your strategy overall, a lot of people get sucked in thinking, oh, there's so many things, I don't know where to start. Step back and start with the big guys, because the reality is most of your audience can probably be reached on just 2 or 3 social networks effectively. Don't try to be everywhere. Be in a few places well. The other thing that I wanted to share with you on this topic is a quick bonus power tip. So one of the things that's really important as you step back and look at your social media strategy, hopefully some of you are already doing it, but when you look at all these social networks that are out there, a lot of people get overwhelmed. They think there's a lot of them, and maybe you're one of these people who rushes to create an account right away. Maybe you're really busy and you don't bother to do that. here's the thing. It's good practice to reserve your username on every social network, including the ones you are not currently using. So if there's one slide that has like really specific action items for you, it is this one. You can take a picture of it with your phone even to quickly remember it later. But the first tip for setting up your social networks, and if you haven't done it this way, you can still go back and fix it. Create one central email address that you use to register everything. If you outsource your social media to either, someone on your team, someone you know, or an agency, make everything get registered to your account. I cannot tell you how many small businesses have problems where so-and-so set up the social network, so-and-so set up our Instagram account, and now I don't know how to find them, and we've lost access. Create one account. For us, we use social at Bootcamp. Well, we use actually my account because I'm probably not going anywhere. But in general, you would use social at yourdomain.com. So we should use social at bootcampdigital.com and use that as the one standard email address to get all of your social media presences wrapped around. Even the networks you're not using, go in and reserve your name there, because what you don't want to do, so one of the keys to success with social media is consistency. I want to be able to say, hey, follow me at Bootcamp Digital on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I want them all to be the same, because in the long run, that's a much better branding position. You know what really sucks is if I can be Bootcamp Digital on Facebook and Twitter, and then, some 13-year-old sharing inappropriate photos is Bootcamp Digital on Snapchat or on Tumblr. And suddenly Snapchat becomes the next big thing, and now I don't have that account. So even the networks that you're not going to be active on, go create this central email address, go and reserve your username everywhere, and you can just leave a quick message that says, hey, we're not active here yet, but this is where you can find us. So choose one username and try and reserve it everywhere. So if there's one like very tangible tactical thing, it would be this. And so you can see the example here. Apple isn't Apple on Twitter. Not good. Okay, so trend number 2, consumers are more demanding than ever before. And this is maybe something that drives you crazy. And I don't mean this in the sense of the consumers that you deal with in the sense of they want, better arrangements and better service. I mean this from a social media standpoint. One of the things to keep in mind is that social response time expectations are high and growing. Every time we look at new stats on this, what we see is that people want responses faster and faster from businesses. I was just on Facebook Messenger with KLM today, and I sent them a message, and it took them 25 minutes to get back. It's Messenger. The whole point is to try and have a chat, right? If I wanted to wait around for a response, I'd have used email. And so for me personally, 25 minutes after each interaction, so I ask them a question, they take 25 minutes to get back to me. I try and ask the next question, they take 25 minutes. It's a terrible back and forth interaction, and that's 25 minutes. So the point is that consumers are expecting to hear back from you quickly. So if you're going to use things like Facebook Messenger to connect with people, it's a great idea, but please make sure you're monitoring it so that you can respond to people quickly. What you don't want is for your social media presence to turn into a liability, right? So if you say you're on Facebook and I go and leave a comment asking you a question and you don't respond, suddenly what could have been a positive, having a great Facebook page, is a little negative, because now I've had a bad interaction because you weren't responsive to me in a time frame that seemed reasonable. So as you look at where you're going to play and how you want to play, keep in mind that people do expect to hear from you quickly, and what this means. So how do you take advantage of this? Have a plan to monitor and have a plan to respond quickly. Honestly, even with Facebook Messenger, we use Facebook Messenger, but you can download an app onto your mobile phone where you get the messages right away and you can act on them immediately. The bottom line is that if you look at this statistic, 40% of people expect to hear back in under an hour on social networks. So just make sure you're monitoring social networks. What's really nice is you can get notifications, you can get them sent to your phone or someone else's phone and have them monitored in that way. What a lot of small businesses that we've worked with actually do, so here's a bit of a pro tip, is they'll have one cell phone for like the office phone that they just use for social media. So it could be a tablet or a phone, and they'll get the notification sent to that and keep it right up front beside a cash register or something. So then whenever someone has a spare minute, they can go down and look, see if anything interesting has come in. So as you look at what you're doing on social media, keep in mind people are expecting to hear back from you, and they're expecting to hear back from you quickly. The good news is that you can turn this into a positive if you respond quickly and give people a great experience. So if I can ask you a question through chat and you can get back to me quickly, now that puts you ahead of everyone else. One of the things we know is that speed is a huge part of winning customers over. So if I'm getting a quote, especially for an important event, and one person I can talk to right away, the other people are like, oh yeah, come in and then we'll email you a quote, and it takes them a long time, less likely to earn my business. As a side note to this topic, one of the things I find very surprising, I got married, 3 or 4 years ago, and what I found surprising was probably in the wedding industry in general, 50% of the vendors we looked at were disqualified simply because we couldn't get a quote from them, or we couldn't get, they'd say, oh yeah, I'll send you this on Monday, and 2 weeks would go by and then we'd follow up, and it was really hard. So the positive of this is that if you can be responsive to people, it's not rocket science, it just takes a system. The same way you hopefully have a system to respond to voicemails or emails. You just need a system, and this can really turn into a positive for you where you're connecting with people faster and really setting yourself apart with an exceptional customer service experience. One of the trends that we see in this space as well, I'm not going to talk much about it, but I follow social media and digital marketing news, and you might hear people talking about chatbots. And essentially what a chatbot is it's like a robot that answers your calls. It's not really a robot, but this is an example. So I got an ad on Facebook. I have a new Samsung phone, and I got this ad that said, do you have questions about your new phone? Just ask. So I said, oh, interesting. I said, do you have any tips? And they said, I'm the Galaxy S8 chatbot, and I'm here to help you master your new phone. From transferring your old stuff to learning the basics. Ready to chat? I'm not sure I follow you. To find something specific, you can open a menu item here. Here are some other ways that I can help you. So what's interesting to me is that, a robot can't replace human interaction, right? This isn't actually a very good experience. Hey, do you have any tips? I have a new phone. I'm excited. How could I use it well? They're not programmed to answer that. I could say Wi-Fi, and they can tell me how Wi-Fi works. But it's interesting. So if you hear people talking about chatbots and this kind of stuff, this is what it really is. It's automating personal relationships, which honestly is not something that seems to be working super well just yet. I haven't had good experiences with any of the chatbots that I've used yet. Okay, next trend in social media, Facebook is really now pay to play. So what does that mean, Facebook is pay to play? Well, it means organic reach is declining. So this is a little bit of an outdated statistic, but even in 2014, reach on Facebook pages was declining dramatically. So what do I mean by reach on Facebook pages? So I'm going to go on Facebook and actually show it to you so you can see it. Now, as a little disclaimer, I'm going to show you my actual real Facebook page with actual real humans who I'm friends with on it. I don't know what they will post, so please do not hold my friends against me. So what I mean by Facebook being pay to play is that it used to be that if you created a Facebook page and got people to like your page, then those people would generally see your updates in their news feed. So this is the news feed right here where I see updates from people and pages that I've liked. Well, what Facebook has realized over the years is, hey, look, businesses should pay to get into this. This is basically advertising. So Facebook over the last few years has built up their advertising business. And now most pages get 1% or less organic reach, meaning only 1% of your fans are probably seeing your posts unless you use Facebook ads. And a lot of people hear this and say, oh my goodness, you've got to be kidding me. That sounds awful. And, you know, when I look at my own news feed, almost all the posts I see from businesses are sponsored. I would say it's, you know, over 90% ads. So you may be thinking, wow, that's terrible. I can't believe, you know, Facebook's not letting me get in front of my audience for free anymore. Well, here's the thing. Facebook's advertising platform is awesome. It's the best $5 to $10 in advertising that you can possibly spend. First of all, you can start Facebook ads for as little as $1 a day. But a lot of people don't understand just how powerful Facebook ads can actually be. So first of all, when people hear, well, you know, if all you do is post on Facebook, no one's seeing your stuff and it's a waste of your time. That's not 100% true, but for many pages, that would be accurate. The good news of that and how you take advantage of this trend is by spending some time and money figuring out Facebook ads. So what makes Facebook ads incredibly powerful is the targeting that you can do. So there's a few things that people probably don't know that you can do in Facebook ad targeting. First of all, let's say weddings are something that are important to me. I can come over here and I can actually target women. I can set a certain age group or I can leave it open. I can come down here and you see this detailed targeting, demographics, interests, or behaviors. I can actually find people who are engaged and I can send ads to women who are engaged of a certain age even if I wanted to and near me. So I can target even at the zip code level. So I can say I only want to send my ad to women who are engaged who are within 50 miles of my zip code maybe. That's pretty powerful stuff. You don't, you know, Facebook is changing the way we think about advertising. You don't need a billboard that shows your business off to hundreds of thousands of people, most of whom will never buy flowers in their lives. And if they do, they buy them at a grocery store. You want to show your ad to 5 people who are looking for a florist right now. And that's what Facebook ads are going to let you do because you can target so specifically. So where people are really getting results, especially small businesses, is using this smartly. So by really narrowing down your target audience, defining them all on Facebook, and then spending a little bit of money to run ads to them. That's how this turns into a huge advantage for you. And the good thing is you can do it without a lot of money. To me, Facebook ads are one of the biggest missed opportunities by most small and medium businesses. So even though you have to pay to really get visibility in Facebook, it's so worth it if you can do it right because it's incredibly powerful. You can do targeted ads around Mother's Day. You could do targeted ads as the holidays are approaching to very specific audiences about, you know, corporate holiday displays. Whatever those specific groups are, what's really cool is you can find them on Facebook and reach them with exactly the right messages. You could send out an ad, you could have an ad run, you know, on Mother's Day that says, hey, did you leave this to target men only? Run it on Mother's Day that said, hey, you know, don't look like a loser by, you know, not getting your wife something amazing or not getting your wife something amazing. There's still time. We have plenty of last minute arrangements. And I'm just making ideas up here a little bit off the top of my head. You know your business and your audience better than I do. So you can really use this to create super, super powerful targeting options for your audience. Now, I'm going to contradict what I said a little bit, but this is true whether your strategy on Facebook is paid or organic. Good isn't good enough. Great content wins. So in the earlier days of social media, and, you know, by earlier days, it's only 10 years old, so 5 years ago, back in the olden days of social media 5 years ago, but it used to be like, okay, follow these basic rules, make stuff that's moderately interesting, and people will pay attention to you. Now, people are overwhelmed on social media. An average Facebook user is exposed to, I think it's over 1,500 status updates a day, 1,500 things a day. And you want them to pay attention to you? You better have really good content. So we used to say in social media, follow these rules, make it reasonable, and people will respond. Now you really have to take it up a notch. And what you find more and more businesses are doing is that they're really taking a quality over quantity approach where they're posting less often, but they're posting more interesting things. So most people post less often, but they make every single thing great. So you'll even notice on Facebook, when I started doing Facebook marketing, it was 1+ times a day. Some people still post that often. Some people have, great eyes for good content and can find awesome stuff. What you find most businesses are at now is about 2 or 3 posts a week. And that's not to say 2 or 3 is the right frequency. The right frequency is when you have something great. Great content wins. So why does great content win? Well, on every social network, not just Facebook, your news feed or what you see as a user when you log in is dictated by an algorithm. Meaning when I log into Instagram, it works the same as Facebook now. Twitter works this way too. LinkedIn does. All the social networks work this way now, is that the content I see at the top of my Instagram feed when I log in is not the most recent post. It's the stuff that Instagram thinks I'm most likely to be interested in, which I'm slightly offended that Instagram would think that I would be interested in these, what do you call them? Fidget spinners? Yeah, maybe. Anyways, I'm slightly offended by that, but that's not the point. The point here is that what Instagram is doing is they're not going to show me the most recent stuff. They're going to show me the best stuff. So good enough isn't good enough anymore. You need to have great stuff if you want to break through the noise and have people really pay attention to you. Even if you pay to put your ad in front of people, people are great at ignoring stuff that they don't find interesting. So make your content interesting so people want to pay attention to you. I know this isn't in your industry, but a few years ago, I've actually worked over a number of years with Great Parks of Hamilton County. And what really blew my mind with them, so I already told you Facebook is pay to play. And here's a giant but. If you're really smart about your content, you can still get good results. When I started working with them, they had about 7,000 people who had liked their page, and their average posts were only getting 1 to 200 people seeing them. So their reach or visibility was only 1 to 200 people. They really started making cool content. Like, look at, this guy's really funny. I've met him once, but he's one of their naturalists, I think, and he's doing this like cool video with a gross looking spider. What's really interesting is, look at this, 2.3 thousand views, 17 shares. All these people have reacted to it. So what they were able to do is, without spending money, just by making really good, interesting stuff, they've been able to turn their reach from 100 to 200 to thousands. And this is happening while most pages are seeing a decline in reach. So if you're smart and you have great content, you still can reach people. You just have to have really good stuff. So mediocre is not going to cut it anymore. Another pro tip for you, or another trend, is video, 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 video. All the big social networks are investing more and more in video. Facebook favors video in their algorithm. They say it's the #1 content that people want. We see great video content on the FTD page. You want to make sure that you have great videos, and what Facebook and YouTube say is the first 3 to 6 seconds are the most important part of your video, because that's going to make it or break it for you. Either you grab their attention and they keep watching, or they keep scrolling in their news feed. And what the social networks call this is thumb stopping power. The reason it's called that is because now most people view Facebook on their mobile phones, and you're like this, right? You're scrolling, 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 scrolling. Oh, what stops your thumb and makes you pay attention? So we know videos tend to have thumb stopping powers. You need to make sure your videos are interesting so people want to engage with them. Now, some of you may be saying, I'm not a video editor. I don't know how to make great videos. A tool that I love to use is called Animoto. It's pretty inexpensive. I don't have their pricing in here, but it's fairly inexpensive. They also have a free account that you can do some experimentation with. And it's a great tool to make really powerful videos if you just want to load in some quick video clips or do like images with words on top, which you're starting to see, especially on Facebook. Those are really popular. But if you're just going to do some live action, you can also do that now with your phone. It blows my mind. I see a lot of small businesses posting questions about what kind of camera should I buy to make better videos. Honestly, if you have like a reasonably good phone, an iPhone, I have a Samsung S8. If you have a reasonably good phone, it's going to record video footage that is better than enough for most of your social media and online purposes. So look at some of these DIY tools. I love Animoto. If you pop onto their site and look at their demos, you'll see all the cool videos that you can make with them. But you don't need to be a pro video person to make great videos. You need some creativity and you need some time, but you can make great videos as well. So visuals are key, but the other thing to keep in mind is that real pictures work best. So one of my more vivid memories, unfortunately, of the floral industry was around, I think it was Mother's Day a few years ago, and people were posting all these pictures of like flower fails, right? Where like they saw a picture like of this beautiful bouquet they thought they were sending that to their mom, and the bouquets ended up looking like, you know, hysterically awful. And so people were taking pictures and posting them online. The reason I bring this up is to say that things like this make people skeptical. And we're skeptical because when we see things like these types of pictures, they are perfect, they're staged. What I want to see isn't what do your arrangements look like on the best day, in the best light, when you've planned to photograph them. What I want to see is what are your flowers going to look like when they show up at my house? And so one of the trends that we see in social media that I think is huge for your specific industry is what I call the 3 R's of photos. Real photos of real things by real people. Real photos of real things by real people. These photos will perform better typically than these types of stock photos. They're not stock photos, I suppose, but these overly processed, overly professional photos. Look at what real people are posting, right? I looked at what my friends post about flowers on Facebook. These are real photos. They're beautiful. Look to post things like this. Hey, here's something we made today. And that kind of content, real content, something a customer shared with you, even a customer picking up their bouquet with a huge smile on their face, you know, whatever it is that you can use. But showing real photos will actually, studies show that people are more responsive to those, especially on social networks, than they are to a lot of the more processed types of photos that you may use. So I'm not saying you don't need photos like this, and I'm not saying they maybe shouldn't be on your website. What I'm saying is if you want to break through the clutter of social media and have people pay attention to you, look at creating real photos. And the good news for you is you don't need a big budget to do this. You can do it, anyone can do this with their mobile phone. So real photos by real people. Another pro tool that I will share with you is something called Canva, which is great for making images for social media. So if you want to make images with text on top of them, or if you're doing like DIY for all your social, if you're doing DIY for all your social networks and you want to create like the cover photos for Facebook and YouTube and all these different places, Canva actually has templates predetermined for all of them. I love using it. It's really easy to use. Basically it's a design tool that anyone can use. So that's something to check out if you want to take your image game to the next level. The next trend in social media that we're seeing is automation. But we need to be, it's not just automation, it's smart automation. So it's interesting to me, I've been in this space for a long time, and when social media first got popular, people automated everything. So people would automate stuff like if somebody tweeted about you, they would set up a service that would automatically say, thanks so much for mentioning us. Well, what happened is I would say, hey, I got these flowers and they were awful. And you would respond, thanks so much for mentioning us. It doesn't work well. So automation used to be really hot. People realized it wasn't very good. It's picking up a little bit more now with those chatbots that I showed you earlier, where people are trying to automate a dialogue, which still does not work quite that well. So automation, you hear, hey, it's great for social media. No, it's awful. Don't automate anything. You need to use smart automation. So what does smart automation look like? It means automate the things that you would want to do anyways. So I use a tool called IFTTT.com, if this, then that. And what this does is it allows you to set up recipes. So I can say, if I post a new photo on Instagram, then put it in an album on my Facebook page, or tweet that photo. Or I can say, if I have a blog post come out, then post it on Facebook right away. So you can kind of set up recipes where if something happens, then it will trigger an activity on another social network. So I use this for some of the things that I want to automate that are time sensitive. My favorite automation tool right now is a tool called Buffer. And Buffer is probably, I've used a lot of social network scheduling and reporting tools over the years. What Buffer is great for, what it's really, 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 really best for, is scheduling out your posts on social media. So it's not a listing tool. So if I want to come here and see what other people have said about me, nope, not for that. All it's good for, all it's good for, and what it's very, very good at, is scheduling out your posts. So if you want to schedule posts across multiple social networks, you can see we post to Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, basically every social network, both personally and professionally in some cases. But all of these social networks I can post to directly from Buffer. And this saves me, I can't tell you how much time. But the key to success with Buffer isn't just signing up for the tool, it's adding a workflow that allows me to use it smartly. So what most smart social media managers do is they'll try to get some of their base social media content scheduled a month in advance. So at the beginning of the month, I want to schedule out the base stuff for my whole month. And then I'm going to augment that with the picture that I took today of this beautiful bouquet that I put together. So it's not just set it and forget it, but if you want to schedule out some base content, especially if maybe you have a busy period coming up and you're not sure if you'll remember, you're getting into the habit of posting on social media, look at using tools like Buffer to schedule some of your content out so that it's easier and more efficient for you to get good content out there. If you're active on Twitter or you want to respond to people, I find HootSuite is one of the better social media response tools. And another tool that I will share with you that I really like is Sprout Social, which is really good for all-in-one reporting and scheduling. So depending on where you're at, these are some of the tools that can help to take your social media to the next level. So with that, I know that was a lot of information for you in a fairly short amount of time, but I wanted to make sure that I shared with you not just what the trends are, but give you some really practical tips and advice on what you can actually be doing to take advantage of them. So at this point, we have some time for questions. So I will open it back up to our moderator who can share some of the questions that you have. If you haven't typed in your questions, feel free to go ahead and type them into the GoToWebinar control panel.
Krista, thanks so much for sharing a lot. That was a lot of great information, and we're really excited to learn from you. And yes, as she mentioned, if you've got a question, just type it in that question box, and we'll be sure to have Krista answer those for you. Right now, I think you had some other questions you were going to share, some other information, Krista?
Yeah, so one of the questions that I got recently about Facebook that I want to share with you, because it's something not a lot of people know, is so I shared with you the tip way back at the beginning, seems like a long time ago, but I shared with you the tip of use a central email address everywhere to register everything. And a tip that I will add to that is make sure you have at least 2 administrators on every single account. I can't tell you how many times I hear so-and-so set up our Facebook page and they've left and we can't contact them. The answer to that problem is you've lost your Facebook page. You're going to have to start again. Facebook will not help you to reclaim a page typically. So one of the things people say though is, well, how do I do this for Facebook? So Facebook actually has a tool that not a lot of people know about. So when you are, a lot of you probably when you're accessing your Facebook page, you go to Facebook and you can access your page directly through this. Facebook actually has a tool for businesses specifically where you can switch your Facebook page over from being managed in regular Facebook to being managed in Facebook Business Manager. And what Facebook Business Manager lets you do, now I will say if you're just a one-person show, you probably don't need to use Business Manager. You can stick to regular Facebook because you're not going anywhere. You're not going to, you can still add a second administrator, but you probably don't have the same issues of making sure that you're connecting people. But if you have multiple people who have access, if you're running ads, definitely you can consider using Facebook Business Manager. It allows you to add people outside of regular Facebook, so it's just more separated from your personal account. So you can see here, business.facebook.com. If I go to my page, it looks the same as a Facebook page anywhere would look. So if I look at the page, it looks almost the same as it does on real Facebook. But the background is gray, so I get an indicator that I'm in Business Manager. But the real advantage to using Business Manager over real Facebook is that you can set this up based on multiple people's email addresses. They do still need Facebook accounts, but it's happening a little bit more outside of Facebook. So something to look at is potentially using Business Manager if you have multiple people contributing to your account. It gives you much more control and allows you to see who's posting content. And you also want to use it if you're doing ads, because if you do ads, they are tied to an individual account on Facebook. So if I'm helping you out on Facebook and you want me to run an ad, if I run an ad on your Facebook page, you can't see any of that ad data. It's tied to your personal account. So Business Manager ties it to the Business Manager account instead of personal account. So it can solve a lot of problems for you there.
Awesome. Thanks. We do have some questions now. Arlene was asking, what was the name of the video making app?
Oh, it's my favorite. It's Animoto. And honestly, just if you're considering it, I'm logged in, but just look at their homepage to see the kinds of videos you can make. On Facebook, the kinds of videos that are doing really well right now are these really simple videos. I'll see if I can find one in my newsfeed. But the kind of stuff that's really popping on Facebook now are these really simple videos that kind of tell a story with either video in the background or images and text on top of them. I see them all the time, and of course I'm not going to see any now, and now I'm scrolling through my news feed, and who knows, again, what offensive things my friends are posting. But anyways, I can't find one now. But these short little videos that you see where it's like either images and text in the background or other way around, text on top of images telling a story, you can make those really quickly in Animoto. So it's Animoto.com. I think they have a free account, so check it out, see if it's going to work for you. But I love it. It's really easy to use, and you can make really fast, good videos there.
Great. Stan wants to know, what is Namebind? Is it namebind.com?
Yeah, so I kind of skipped over it. So it's cool. So if you're setting up your social networks, this is really cool. So what you can do here is, let's say my business is going to be called Krista's Flowers. I can type it in here, and well, my next big business idea is ready to go. It says if I can get the .com, and it shows you if that username is available on all the big social networks. So it's like a fast way to tell if your username that you want to use is available on most social networks. Now, if you're using your business name, like if I was doing this for Boot Camp Digital, hopefully it's unavailable everywhere because hopefully I have it registered. So if you type yours in, hopefully the ones that are red, you've registered. But yeah, it's a really fast way to see what's available for your business name.
Great. We've got Howard and Charlene kind of want to know, combo, how often would you suggest posting on social media, and are there any specific post times that are important?
Okay. So you've asked two really common questions. So the first one is how often to post. Look, it's different for every social network. Facebook, you can post as little as once a week. Twitter, you should be posting a couple times a day. You're going to get out what you put in, right? So on most social networks, the more often you post, the more visibility you get, but only if you post good stuff, right? So the reason I'm real hesitant to say here's how often you should post is because what a lot of people used to do is, and still do, is say, okay, here's my content calendar. Because that's how we teach social media. We teach you, okay, pick your schedule. So you would say, okay, I'm going to post on Instagram Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you come up with your posts. Well, that's great if you have 3 awesome things to share on those days. If you don't have something good to share and you start posting mediocre content, then what happens is the Instagram algorithm kicks in and Instagram says, oh, the stuff you're posting, people find it boring. We're not going to show it to so many people anymore. And now your visibility goes down. So the reason I don't like to talk so much about frequency, and it's not just me, it's definitely less discussed in social media, is because what we know now is that posting great stuff is more important than sticking to a specific schedule. So, you know, there are still businesses on Facebook that post multiple times a day. I think as a florist, you could legitimately post multiple times a day, great stuff that people like. I mean, people love the beauty of nature and flowers. And if you have really interesting, beautiful photos that people like, you could conceivably post more than once a day and still have great content that people are interested in. So I would say re-engineer the question. So there's some general rules of thumb, which are not bad to follow. Facebook, I would say a couple times a week is totally acceptable. Twitter, you want to post multiple times a day. Instagram, you know, most people are posting a couple times a week on there. So for those big social networks, that's about what I would recommend you consider. But don't just stick to a schedule. Post when you have great stuff, or you won't get the results you want. The second part of the question is, when should I post? So I will spare you. I have a really good rant about how I hate being asked that question. But here's the reason I hate the question. So sorry to whoever asked it. But the reason that I always rant about that question is because, look, at the end of the day, 90% of your success is what you post. Did you post something good? Only 10% of your success is, did you post it at 4 p.m. instead of 3 p.m.? So really, most of your success is going to come from posting great stuff. Here's what to think about in terms of when you post. So if you want to know the actual answer to that, you can Google when is the best time to post on social networks, and you'll find all sorts of studies that mostly will tell you 2 p.m. on, I think, like Tuesdays and Wednesdays or something like that. Here's the reality, is that every audience is different and every audience is interested in your value proposition at different times. So think of someone planning a wedding. When are they really thinking about it? Is it in the middle of the workday? Maybe it's on their lunch break, right? Maybe posting at 11:30 is great because they spend their lunch break planning their wedding. And then they pick it back up at 8 o'clock, so you should be posting then at 7 p.m. If you're posting about corporate event planning, maybe those people are thinking about that first thing in the morning. So it really depends a little bit on your audience. And if you look at what most people will say about this topic now is they'll say, there's all these studies that say the best time of day is 2 p.m. And what most people say now is the best time of day is whenever you happen to get the best results. So what's really great is if you are posting on Facebook or any other social network for that matter, you'll have analytics and insights where you can see, so insights is basically analytics on Facebook, but I can see specifically when my audience is online. Now, most audiences are online pretty much all day now. Sad but true. So most people are online all day. I think it's under posts, yeah. So like you can see my audience is online. Well, I'm in Europe, so the times are screwed up. But 2 p.m. here is like 9 a.m. Eastern time. So my audience is basically online from 8 a.m. until, basically they go to bed. So look at when your audience is online, but then test a few different timings and see what times tend to work best for your audience, because what you might find is for your audience and your value proposition, some things work better than others.
Great. Leah has a question about hashtags on Instagram. A few questions in here. What should they always use? How creative should they get? And are there any standard floral industry type hashtags that help get their posts noticed?
So the third question, or the last one, of floral industry hashtags that will help to get their posts noticed, I don't know the answer to that. So maybe I will challenge those of you who are on the call. Does anyone know any of those? And if you do, maybe you can type it into the questions section on the GoToWebinar panel, and then maybe we can have our moderator read them out after. So if anyone has great floral industry hashtags, please feel free to share those. But when it comes to hashtags on Instagram, the most common practice is what you see here. So what makes Instagram a little bit, that's funny, I just posted that for fun. But what makes Instagram a little unique is that on Instagram, you can only search by hashtags. So on Instagram, I can't search just somebody who typed in dreams. If I type the word dreams in and somebody searches dreams, that won't show up. It would only show up if I did hashtag dreams. So the reason you find hashtags so heavily used on Instagram is because it's the only way that you can be searchable on Instagram. Why do you want to be searchable? Well, believe it or not, people come on Instagram and say, I wonder what photos people are sharing related to dreams. I'm hoping nothing offensive shows up. This is perhaps borderline. But anyways, so there are people who search for dreams. So the whole idea behind hashtags is that if you tag your photos with what they're about, people who are interested in them will see them and you get more visibility that way. So generally speaking, what you'll find people do is they keep their initial description a little clean and maybe use just 1 or 2 hashtags. And then in the comment, they'll put a bunch of hashtags to drive more visibility. So there's a limited number of relevant hashtags, right? So when it comes to using hashtags, only use stuff that's relevant. I had a client once who went off and watched some stupid videos somewhere about how to get more views on Instagram, and they basically said, use the most popular hashtags all the time. So this guy has a restaurant chain, and he's hashtagging his photos of French fries with hashtag Justin Bieber because that's a popular hashtag. Are you serious? First of all, it ended up getting him blocked from Instagram. But that aside, if someone's looking for Justin Bieber, they don't care about your French fries. So use relevant hashtags. You don't need to have 100. I think if you have anywhere from 5 to 10, that's a great number. Try to keep them as relevant as possible, and that's going to get you the best results on Instagram. But hashtags will increase your visibility for sure. So try to use hashtags that are relevant when you can.
All right. Natalie wants to know, is blogging really important, and does it make a difference to the social media presence?
So I'm a huge fan of blogs. It's interesting because I almost don't think of them as social media anymore because we always think of all these social networks. But yeah, blogging is actually, in my opinion, blogging is first and foremost for me, it's about my search engine optimization strategy. So if I want to be found on, so yes, blogs are incredibly important to your online marketing. I think the first way they're important is for search engine optimization. So if you want to be found when people are looking for businesses like yours, having good blog posts that are about what you want people to find you for is going to help with that. So a blog is great for that. It's also great for building trust and credibility on your website. So if I'm on your site looking at arrangements or deciding if I'm going to get a quote from you on something, again, I'm going to see all of your great, perfect, beautiful shots. But if you have a blog where you're sharing real stories or tips or, examples of your work, that's going to be that much more impactful and interesting and make me feel like, man, this person has a great attention to detail. So I did a a presentation at a National Association for Event Planners a number of years ago. And someone I was talking to there told me, she was like, the thing people don't realize about event planners is that we have an eye for details. So she had a story about how someone wanted centerpieces with live goldfish in these fish bowls. And so fine, weird, but whatever. So they got it all set up, and she was like, in the back, we had 10 extra fish because we didn't want people sitting. Goldfish they don't live super long. And she was like, we didn't want people sitting and looking at these dead goldfish if one of them happened to die. So we had a plan for that. And that's why you hire an event planner. And I was like, wow, that blows my mind. That could be a great blog post, right? It's building trust. It's interesting. It shows a lot of positive things about that particular event planner. And then you take that blog post and you share it on Facebook, you share it on Twitter, you share it on other social networks. So yeah, blogging is still, and you can see we do this, we have blog posts and then we share them on our social networks. But blogging is still a really important part of your social media strategy. So I would definitely still consider it as a part of what you're looking to do.
All right, thank you. Charlene says, is it more effective to find a specific target audience or to keep your content more broad?
That's the million-dollar question. Depends on what you're doing and where. If you're running ads, targeted will outperform broad content most of the time. And, I would say there's a sweet spot somewhere in there, but if you make everything really general, you end up speaking to no one. So if I think about, if I had a strategy on Facebook and Instagram, I may narrow down each of those audiences, right? So I might say, Instagram is really great because of the demographics there. That's really where I'm going to target brides and men sending flowers for, romantic gestures or whatever. And maybe I'm going to say, Facebook, I'm going to be a little more broad because I know age-wise, it's a broader age range, etc. But in general with marketing, the more specific you are, the better you are, right? So if you think about it, if I'm planning a wedding, would I rather hire the florist who on their Facebook page has talked about 20 different kinds of floral arrangements, one of which was weddings, which was decent, but would I rather hire them or somebody who had, 5 of 10 really awesome posts about wedding arrangements? Probably the person who seems more specialized. So what we know in marketing is specialization will convert that specific audience better. So the broader you are, the less relevant you are to more people. So without knowing your business, I can't answer that question for you, but I do think you want to think about your strategy on each social network and how they all play a role into your overall content. And then I would think about getting as specific as you're comfortable because that's where you'll get the best results. So if 80% of your business is 2 types of buyers, yeah, I probably would cut the other 20% of my content from Facebook. So I really speak to those 2 audiences versus trying to speak to everyone.
All right, we've got a couple of questions from Joel. He wants to know if he should hire a social media person or is it better to hire an outside firm? And if they do keep it inside, what organizational dashboard would you recommend?
So outsourcing social media, look, if you don't have someone in staff who will learn how to do it right, outsource it. So to me, it's like best case scenario is always insourced. And the reason I say best case scenario is always insourced is because you're going to know your customers, you're going to know the business better, you're going to be there to capture all these great moments with these beautiful arrangements, right? Like no one is going to do a better job promoting your business than someone who is there day in and day out. But if you're not going to give that person enough time to do it well, if you're not going to help them learn best practices and, give them the space to figure it out, if it's not going to be a priority, outsource it. Because you're better off having somebody else who knows best practices and really understands social media if you can't build that internally. So most of the businesses that get the best results initially in-source. outsourcing is also, when you outsource, the advantage is you get someone who knows their stuff. They're going to know, hey, I need these kinds of photos. I structured it this way because of this. They're not going to have this huge learning curve. So if you can't dedicate an in-sourced approach to do it right, then I would definitely outsource. In terms of dashboards, honestly, it just depends on what you're doing and how many networks you're using and what you need. I've done social media for my own business for 10 years, and I actually, when I want analytics, if I'm going to dive into Facebook, I go right to Facebook and I look at Facebook Insights. I don't use any other analytics tools except the social networks themselves. Now, if I was managing social media for 5 companies, I wouldn't do that. I would sign up for Sprout Social and get everything in one place. So I think Sprout Social is a good bet. Another one people like is Meet Edgar. So there's Sprout Social is really popular. And then actually Meet Edgar might still be in a beta stage where you have to, there's no shortage of these social media platforms that people talk about and love. So yeah, you allegedly need an invitation. You don't really, but Sprout Social is a good starting point. I think it's like $50 a month, but you want to make sure you'll use it. I use the scheduling tool to schedule my stuff out. I use the free version of HootSuite to get notifications. Actually, now I mostly just do that through my phone. I don't even use my computer for that so much anymore. And then I use the social networks themselves. So, step back and think about what your needs are and how you're going to use this stuff, because you don't want to invest a bunch of money and time setting up all these things that you really don't need and won't use.
All right, Stephanie wants to know, do you think there is any value in the VIP groups on Facebook anymore? And if so, what kind of content would you recommend using it for that makes belonging to a VIP group seem worth it to the client?
So I'm not sure I'm super familiar with what you're talking about with VIP groups, but with Facebook groups in general, first of all, Facebook recently changed the rules on groups. Before, business pages could not participate in groups. A business page can now actually create and moderate a group, which is really cool. So what's neat now is, as a business, you could create and moderate your own group. But look, I think when it comes to any tactic with social media, whether it's a VIP group or something else, there's not one answer for everyone. So there are things that I've tried for my business, like these referral networks. I've tried those. They didn't work well for me. Somebody else who has a similar business, I know, got amazing results from it. They said it changed their lives. So a lot of it is how you use it and whether or not you have the time to invest. So what I would suggest is, what I think the best strategy is as a business owner, look, you have a lot of different things to do. This is one of many things on your mind. Even if you're in marketing, you've got a lot to do, marketing and sales, you've got a lot to do beyond just social media. So what I would encourage you to do is every quarter, choose one thing that you're going to test. So take that, set it up as a test where you track how much time do I put in? How much money do I put in? What are the tangible results and maybe intangible results that I'm getting? And is that worth it? So what I would recommend is a test and learn approach, because that's the only way you'll really know what works for you. And when it comes to groups, some groups are really valuable and others are not. So it really depends on you. I worked with an MLM company a number of years ago, and what blew my mind was they would give their consultants all of these strategies, like, hey, create a group and add your friends and blah, blah, blah. And some people would do it and it would work great for them. And other people would do it and their friends would say, why did you add me to this group? This is the worst. I hate you. And honestly, each person and their relationships and their context is a little different. So there's not one answer. These things can work great for some people and not for others. So what I would recommend, if you have a strategy in mind, give it a shot and find a low investment way to test it and see if it's going to work for you.
Great. Thanks, Krista. If you wouldn't mind going to that final slide with your contact information, we've got time. We're kind of right at the limit. We've got time for one more question. And then if anybody has any additional questions or that, they can certainly reach out to you. Kathleen wants to know, if she wants to make a new Facebook for a new business, how would she transfer the people from her current Facebook?
Well, I'm not sure why you would want to. So you can't do that. You can't create one business page and say, well, I have a separate business. I want these people to go there. You can merge two pages, or you can even change the name of a page. So if you have a page and maybe you've renamed your business, you could rename your page. I think you're only allowed to do it once though, but you can't take fans from one page and automatically put them somewhere else. I was trying to think if there's a workaround or something. All you really could do, what I would probably do, is just run ads targeting people who've liked my page. If there's not many of them, it's not going to cost me much to do this. I would run ads trying to get the people who've liked my current page to like my new page. And that's probably the best way you're going to do it. And you can obviously make some organic posts on that page as well. But I think that's the only way to do it. Facebook doesn't really want you to just be able to transfer people from one page to another, especially if people haven't proactively decided to like it. So you really will just have to promote your new page to the people who've liked the current page.
Great, thank you so much. And we are out of time, so we just want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. If you missed a portion of the webinar or you want to view it again, there was a lot of great information. The replay will be available at FTD University online later this week, and the webinar materials are up there at the address on the screen. We will be sending everybody a very brief survey to gather feedback on today's webinar, so I ask you to please just take a minute to complete the survey, help us improve future webinars and our other education programs for everyone. Our next webinar, FTD webinar, is titled Grow Your Business with Marketing and Branding, scheduled for Tuesday, July 25th. FTD Education Consultant Randy Wooten, AIFD, will be sharing marketing and branding ideas that have proven successful for his business. The registration is already available at ftdi.com, so please be sure to register as soon as possible to reserve your spot. And again, Krista, we just want to thank you for showing us how to take advantage of those big social media trends that are out there right now. This concludes FTD's webinar, 7 Trends in Social Media and How to Take Advantage of Them. Thanks, everyone.